And good evening, and welcome. Well, we do this every week. I am Richard the Razor Ewing. This is GameFace. Good evening. If you are trying to figure out how to get the lug nuts off the wheel of your truck, you are on the wrong podcast. If you are trying to figure out what costume to wear on the next episode of The Masked Singer, you are on the wrong podcast. However, if you are trying to get insight into Bay Area sports in a unique way and trying to get more insight on sports on a national level, you just put your game face on. As I just said, I am Richard DeRazor Ewing. I got my special co-host with me, Mike Dishu Shumann. Mike, what do we got?
Well, first of all, the Masked Singer you brought up, I'm hooked on that show.
No, don't tell me that.
I hate to admit it. I've jumped from The Voice.
Oh, no.
One day I was going through it, I saw it, and I said, oh, yeah. And then, anyway, if you want to dumb down and go to sleep, that's the show to watch.
I tell you, I have been lobbying to have that show taken off the air.
Okay, yeah.
You got to be kidding me, dude. Really?
It's bad. It's bad. And who came up with that?
Very bad.
We'll dress up. But then when somebody takes their mask off and you go, no way, some former athlete, I can't remember who. Anyway. Yeah. Well, of course, we got to talk about the Niners, but NBA draft coming up Wednesday, and I see you're prepared. You wore your Warriors shirt.
Hey, man, got to represent.
And you got your hair tightened up there. I'm going to try and get mine tomorrow. So too bad we couldn't sync up on the same day.
Hey, man, look, this COVID thing, man, if you can get in a chair and somebody's cutting your hair, do it.
Right. And I can always tell because when you don't wear your hat, that means you got your hair tightened up,
There you go.
And if anyway, before we get started, the NFL season, of course, in full swing. We can't be at the games, but you can still be in the game on Bet Online. Now, I told you early in the year I was taking a betting against the 49ers. For the 49ers. No, against them with the points. Then they lost some games, started taking them with the points. I had 9 points with the Niners against the Saints, who had beaten the Buccaneers horribly the week before. Usually you'll have a letdown after that game.
Right.
And the Niners needed a win to stay in the playoff hunt. I took the Niners to 9 points and lost again. So, but I won't give up. So from game spreads, totals, teams, players, coaching, props, Bet Online gives you more options to wager than any place online. There's always the online casino as well. It never closes. Now, call to action. Head to betonline.ag today. Take advantage of the great sign-up bonuses. Again, betonline.ag and sign up today. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. Well, I thought the Niners would go down there and hopefully get a win. They still were hurting at running back. I think Jet McKinnon, who hadn't played in 3 years up till this year, it's starting to catch up with him. His legs look dead, and, he's taking all the reps. JaMychal Hasty broke his collarbone. He was out early in the game. Can the Niners go one day without an injury? But in that game, Drew Brees was tackled by what's his name? Contavious Smith.
Yeah, Street,
I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. He had 3 cracked ribs coming into the game, but they didn't know it against Tampa Bay because sometimes on x-rays, it takes a while to show up. Not MRIs, but x-rays. So he had 3 cracked ribs, cracked 2 more on the other side, and punctured a lung on that tackle.
Wow.
And I can remember one time when you get tackled like that and your arms are pinned to your side, you have nothing to break your fall. Not your arms, not your hands. The only thing that breaks your falls is wherever they slam you down in your face.
Wow.
So that's what happened with Drew Brees there. And then that 295 pounds fell on top of him. I didn't think it was roughing the passer. It was just a good tackle.
I thought it was a good tackle too.
And because Drew was actually hurt, rolled over, and you could see him the rest of the game standing on the sideline because he played the rest of the half, and I think they scored a couple touchdowns. So the guy's such a competitor. You don't want to come out. And Jameis Winston got some play. But what a competitor. But with those punctured lung, 5 cracked ribs, he might not be back for the season, which really hurts their chances. And so I was sad to see, but that was such a chicken, call. And but they just don't have the players. Their defense is solid. They're number 5 ranked defense in the league. So you got to give Robert Saleh credit, number one, and I have because when Richard Sherman got injured, he could go so many different ways, and now he's showing us what he's capable of as a defensive coordinator, mixing things up, blitzing, this, that, and the other. So he should be coordinator of the year on defense, but for what he's done with no Nick Bosa, no Ford, no Richard Sherman, all the injuries in the secondary. So it was just they just didn't have the offensive firepower. Brandon Ayuk is going to be a player. And then Kinlaw had his best game as a 49er. So their top 2 draft choices, which is usual, the second half of the season is when they start to show up, because the first half you're just learning the ropes. And so those are the 2 bright spots I think we saw in the game. Thoughts?
Well, I tell you something. I think you're absolutely correct. I mean, you have to tip your hat to Robert Saleh's defense because they really kept them in the game. They had a couple of instances where, really, in my opinion, I don't think Kyle Shanahan took advantage of the situation. He had a couple of situations where they actually could have been up 20-10 at one point.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
And he did not take advantage. I'm just going, okay. And this has been an ongoing thing with him where you start to realize, is he, because they call him this genius, they call him a schemer, they call him all these different things, but is he a person that knows when to adjust, to take advantage of a situation? And I just feel like I'm not sold on him being able to do that as a head coach. Now, I think after what I've been seeing, I think that he's good as and it may be that he may need to get an offensive coordinator. Maybe that might be the route to go. But what I'm seeing is that he doesn't make adjustments well. Not only that, but I think that some of his play calling at specific moments of the game, you start to go, okay, why did you call that play? On a third, if you got a 3rd and 4, why are you trying to, throw a pass, and the pass is probably a 10-yard pass, and the coverage has been covering you all night, okay? You guys have not been catching the football. You had that situation, which, mind you, Mullens, delivery on the ball probably wasn't the best, but it was an end zone throw. Bourne couldn't pull it out of the guy's hands, resulted in interception. Another play, Mullen goes back to pass, throws, interception. I mean, it's being able to know when to call these plays and when not to. And I just think, really, I'm not seeing that from Shanahan. I'm not seeing him being able to look at a situation and go, okay, look, this is the right play for this situation.
Well, 2 things. I think Kyle is one of the top 5 offensive minds in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Number 1. Number 2, great point on maybe he needs to let it go and let his offensive coordinator call the plays, but he'll never do that because I don't want to say of his arrogance, or I think when offensive coordinators get head coaching jobs, they have a really hard time letting go to an offensive coordinator. And I think as a result, he's got too much on his plate trying to be head coach, offensive coordinator, make these calls. And as a result, I think we're starting to see it with his in-game management. And that's what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Great schemer, great offensive mind, but he's not implementing it at the right times, or maybe he's got too much else on his mind. He gets distracted with a defensive or special teams thing, and he goes, oh, yeah, I got to call a play. So that catches up to you. Now, I'm not sure he's ready to let that go. And I don't know if he ever will. But a great example of not making adjustments. I can't think of the young man's name, number 22 for the Saints. Blitzing off the corner 6 times in that game. He had a sack. He forced one of Mullens' interceptions as a result. And he just was putting pressure all day. So that's an adjustment you have to make. The guy's blitzing from that side. The man he's covering, quick slant right away. Boom, just look for the ball on a blitz. That's what receivers do on a blitz. If the man over you blitzes, you just look for the ball right away. Nothing. Not one time did they go to the player over him. So they were controlling the edge on defense, which is what you want to do in football, force everything up the middle. So all 3 good points by you. He's got too much on his plate. He maybe needs to let go and delegate the offensive play calling but you got to find somebody you really trust and knows what you want to do. Now, he could have input, but if you're going to be a head coach, so like Sean McVay does that in LA, he had Wade Phillips down there. He'd coach the offense, and Wade was in charge of the defense. When the defense got on the field, Sean would go sit on the bench and start plotting for it. No, not a head coach. He was an offensive coordinator then. Mm-hmm. So it's maybe it's the future. I don't know. This is the new wave of head coaches. So, but if Robert Saleh, for instance, got a head coaching job, he wouldn't be coaching the defense. Right. You know, he might go over to his defensive coordinator and say, hey, we need to do this on this particular situation. But I think it's easier for defensive coordinators to let it go than offensive coordinators because you're really controlling the game on offense. So with that said, you know, and then Breeze goes down, it still was no adjustments on offense. You know, like I say, Ayuk was good and Ayuk, but Trent Taylor, when he did not field that punt and it hit his player and they recovered, Niners were in that game. Weren't the Niners up 10-0 at one point?
Yeah.
So, and then the whole thing fell apart. Why did he not field that punt? You know, was he trying to be cute or something? Catch it, and then walk away. He fair caught it. He's not going to get hit. Yeah. Hits his teammate. And if you're going to do that, you got to yell, the word is Peter, get away from the ball. Get away from the ball. You know, and he didn't do it. And I'm sorry, as much as I said a couple of weeks ago, I hate to get down on possession receivers because they only keep one per team. It's time for him to go. You know, that man crush Kyle has on him has got to go. Richie James was open so many times in this game, and Mullens couldn't get it to him. He had him deep. Maybe that's the play you were talking about.
Yeah, he did. I saw
it. Underthrew him. Oh. And it was the same thing. It was on that blitz by 22. Mm-hmm. Boom, just throw it up and let him run under it.
Yeah.
I think Richie James is a player.
Yeah, he is a player.
He's a game breaker, and he spent the last 2 years with Dante Pettis and Trent Taylor not developing Richie James. You know, so anyway, so just a lot of issues. And, of course, the injuries have caught up with them, and they just can't keep up. You know, yeah, you're bringing up now the third guy at each position, you know, who are mostly those guys are practice squad players who really aren't ready for the NFL. Mm. That's why they're on the practice squad. So, So they're, 4-6 now? So they've got to either go 6-0 to get 10-6 or 5-1 to get 9-7, what I predicted for this year, to even have a chance at the wild card, because the Rams won, Seattle lost, and the Cardinals on that last second touchdown. That Kyler Murray is just sick.
And hey, he's running. That's what happens when you go out and you get a guy who can go up and get it, like DeAndre Hopkins. That's what happens. That's what you get. Hopkins, basically, it was a free for all. And really, it was great concentration on Hopkins' part because he had three guys around him, and he grows up, he gets it. He goes up and gets it, brings it down, touchdown. But the other thing is, and what I was telling somebody 2 weeks ago, I said, you mark my words, after this week, the number one team in that division is going to be the Arizona Cardinals, because I mean, come on, you have to understand, Arizona's beating everybody in that division. Okay, they beat San Francisco.
That's right. You're right.
That's right. They beat Seattle. They beat the Rams. Okay, they're beating everybody in that division. Their issue is playing out of the division right now. They lost games out of the division. But inside,
but I'd be willing to bet all three of those teams, Rams, Cardinals, and Seattle, are going to the playoffs. So
probably, and the Niners won't.
No, Niners are done. They just don't have the talent right now to compete. They have a bye week. They'll get Mostert back and Tevin Coleman, so they can get their run game back. This is a little bit of the problem when your whole offense is based on the run game, play action pass. If you can't run, all of a sudden, you're throwing the ball where you're not used to down the field. And Mullens isn't used to it. Garoppolo's not used to it. So it doesn't matter who plays quarterback. And Kyle doesn't have the flexibility to alter his offense. Playing Seattle, worst pass defense in the league, he tries to run the ball. Going against the Saints, one of the best run defenses, or pass defenses, he throws the ball. It's like, what is this guy on? So I don't know. I'm with you. I just pull what little hair I have left out. Watching this guy, that's a bit of arrogance when you try to run the ball against the best run defense, and his inability, also arrogance of not making adjustments.
Yeah.
So I still think he's one of the top offensive minds, but he just I don't know. And they got some, I don't want to say poor calls, that rough in the passer. There's nothing else he could have done. Was it Street?
Yeah.
Yeah, he hit him to the side. He fell to the side. He kind of fell on him, but then rolled to the side. So I just thought that was a bogus call, and then Trent Taylor letting that ball fall. So those two plays changed pretty much the outcome of the game.
Yeah, it did. He had the miscule. I Bleav that was by Richie James Jr. with the punt. The punt. He milked a punt return. Did you see that?
James did.
Yeah.
So, he was putting Trent Taylor back there just to rationalize the fact that he was dressing him because he's not contributing on offense. He's had maybe 2 catches all season, So Jimmy Ward had another interception go right through his hands. Mm-hmm. Could have been his 3rd interception in 5 years, So I don't know. I just see, like we talked about before, Kyle's got, and it's not just man crushes, but he's determined to prove that he made a good choice on these players, and he didn't. So Kyle has a real problem admitting when he's wrong.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out why also they had CJ Beathard come in for one play. But then I found out afterwards one of the reasons why was because Nick Mullens apparently had the wind knocked out of him.
Right.
So he needed a couple of plays to get his win back.
Right.
I want to switch gears over to the NBA, and one of the reasons why is because, like you brought up in the beginning of the show, the NBA draft is going to be happening on Wednesday, and there's a lot of things going on in the NBA right now.
That's right. Chris Paul traded to the Suns.
To the Suns. What's interesting though is also the Lakers letting go of Danny Green in a 28 draft pick to pick up Dennis Schroeder from OKC. I thought that was pretty interesting.
See, I love Schroeder, whatever it is. I love him.
Yeah. He has a nickname, the Schroeder Shooter. That's what they call him. But
he's got a huge upside.
Oh yeah, I mean the guy was averaging 18 points in the game playing for OKC, and he was doing this off the bench.
And he's not even as developed as he can be, So.
Yeah. In other words, there's more blooming of this kid. Now
Westbrook wants out, and now James Harden wants to go to the Nets.
You just took my next segue. You did, okay? Yeah. I tell you something. That Harden thing, if he goes to the Nets, hey, go ahead and pour some more poison on that. Go right ahead. I don't see that to work at all.
Well, you have to have a coach like Steve Kerr. What Steve does best is get players to play together.
Right.
Doesn't matter who gets the points. You just want victories.
Right.
I still wonder what kind of X and O's coach he is, because it showed last year when they just sucked. So the jury's still out for me on Kerr. He's a great melding of players, but I'm not sure what a good in-game coach he is. I think Mike Brown was doing a lot of that work. And Brooklyn, I couldn't even tell you who their coach is going to have to be.
It's just Steve Nash.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
So actually, Nash could get those 3 to work together. You take the ball out of Harden.
I don't know though, man. I think we'll wait and see on that, because I'm gonna tell you right now, you're looking at the fact that KD worked with Harden before and they had issues. And I'll tell you something right now. Kyrie wants the ball. Okay.
Well, Harden wouldn't be your point guard. He'd be your 2 guard and Durant your 3.
Okay.
So it's actually better in that situation where Kyrie could set those guys up and then just kick out to Harden, let him shoot the 3, because he's not going to play defense. He's not going to, So I think it would be interesting. And Nash was around the Warriors, around Kerr, saw what it takes to get superstars to play together. But that would be a matchup, boy, for the Lakers. And then what did I read the other day? Paul George, they were looking to trade him. And I think they were trying to get Chris Paul also, the Clippers. But he wasn't coming there. And so it's going to be interesting. But Harden now, they offered him $103 million for 2 years, and he turned it down.
Wow.
He's got all the money he wants. He wants a ring now.
Yeah.
So a guy like that would back off, I think, to get a ring and figure out how to play within. Because Durant went through it with the Warriors, so he could coach Harden on how to do just that. So
yeah,
Kyrie, I think Kyrie would be the issue more than Harden.
Okay, now as far as Harden taking the instruction this time around, I don't see him not doing it, because you look at Harden, you look at everything he's done. He's obviously had an illustrious career.
Yeah.
But I mean,
MVP, All-Star, all he needs is
right. He's done all that. Getting a ring is and right. KD probably could, but I just think that it's going to take a couple of seasons before they can make that happen. I don't think it's going to happen right away. But the thing that's really interesting to me right now concerning the NBA is just the implosion of the Houston Rockets. This is just a franchise that we got to be realistic about it. And that is, they built what's supposed to have been, the team to stop Golden State. And they fell short time and time again. And all of a sudden you see the building blocks start to fall. And all of a sudden, the building can no longer stand on its legs anymore, and I tell you something, if I'm Golden State right now, I start looking at guys like PJ Tucker. I start looking at Robert Covington. I start looking at Clint Capella. Okay. One of those three. Okay. Because I know with everything that's going on there, I'm sure that one of those three won out too. And guess what? They need pieces like that right now. They need guys that are seasoned. That's true. The draft is coming up and I get all that. But right now, you want guys who can play.
Well, I feel for that coach, Silas. Is it Paul Silas? Took over the Rockets. Yeah, he took over the Rockets. And now, and Harden said it, and Westbrook said it. I don't like the culture here. And Harden said he thinks their championship run is over. So for the past 5 years, they did just what you said. They built to beat the Warriors. And they were in the playoffs all 5 of those years against the Warriors. Didn't happen. So, but this is how cyclical championship runs are. All right. You built that team. You had 5 guys or, 8 guys that can make a run. Didn't happen. For one reason or another, they didn't get it done. And pretty much because Harden sucked in the playoffs. All right. And then with him going to Brooklyn, I think because KD didn't play last year, it'll be easier to make that mesh together. Because if KD would have played with Kyrie, then they would have kind of determined who gets the ball when. Mm-hmm. Now you got all 3 of them coming together for the first time. It'd be a lot easier to kind of make it mesh and make it work. All right. So Houston, they imploded. They're done. They're not even. They're not even. The Nuggets will take over, and the Jazz and the Suns will all take over where they in San Antonio left off the past 10 or 15 years. Yeah. And the Warriors too. This will be Bob Myers' most important draft choice in the history of him with the Warriors. Now I'm hearing the kid from Memphis. Is it Wishman? I'm sorry, I can't remember the name.
Wiseman.
7-footer. Not great on the pick and roll, which is what you'd want him to do, and not great on switching on defense is what all the Warriors do. So I'm not sure they're that sold on him. Then the next name that came up was LaMelo Ball. But with Clay and Dre and Steph already there, I just don't see where he fits in. Now, I think Draymond's play is going to taper off drastically. I think it's caught up with him facing up guys who are 20, 30 pounds heavier than him. His legs are shot. You can see it in his 3-point shot. It's gone. And we don't know what Clay and Steph are going to come back as. Yeah, they both can shoot lights out, but I personally think their championship run is over too. I think they'll get to the playoffs, but I just don't think I think they had that 5-year run, and it's just tough to continue that. So Bob Myers, and like you talked about, he's got to either trade that number 2 pick and then pick up something late. But like you said, he's got to build that bench up, which he hasn't had since Iguodala, Livingston, Mo Spates, and all those guys. Yeah. So you can't make a championship run with your starting 5. No. You gotta have just an equalizer when it comes to the bench, right? Because
your stars, even though they are your stars, they're human too. And eventually they run out of gas. And when they do, if you don't have a supporting cast, then what happens is you get exposed, okay?
Right.
Both defensively and offensively. So, and I've been saying that, since even before last season. I said that, look, when they won their last title, okay, and all of a sudden, people started getting jettisoned, okay? Livingston retired, and all this stuff started happening. I thought, okay, you know what? This might be the end of it, okay? Because even though we all love watching the Steph Curry 3, we love watching Clay, and Dre was the junkyard dog, and that was a great time. There's the age-old proverb: you can't beat father time, okay? So it's kind of one of them situations where father time is kind of leaving them now. So if they don't put together a type of synergy that they had before, where the bench was just as good as a starting five, guess what? Yeah, you're right. The door's closing.
And the next 2 years, they have to do that, or the door's closed. Steph's 34-5, Clay's 32 or 33.
Yeah.
And they won one championship with Steph, Clay, and Dre.
Yeah, they did.
But if Kyrie doesn't get hurt in that series, they don't win that series.
Yeah, that was.
And you and I've argued about this over the past. You disagree. So that means that they really won 2 with Durant.
Yeah, but this is the thing, though. The thing you got to remember is that within that
and we're up 3-1 in another one with Clay, Dre, and Steph, and lost that one in 7.
Yeah, but I tell you, the other thing you need to consider, of the 2 that they won with KD was out for a considerable time.
That's true. Yeah, but he got him there with his, basically.
Yeah, he did. Well, this is the thing. We got to be realistic. This was not, going to be, I mean, they brought KD there because they knew what KD could do, and they knew what KD could do for their game. Okay, so let's be realistic. KD's KD. So I acknowledge the fact that the last 2 they did do that with KD, but I just think what they need to do is, like I said, they got to bolster that bench. And they need another impact player.
Right.
They need somebody who can come in, who's seasoned, not somebody they got to develop. Okay, because they got guys that are developing right now. Okay, or we would like to think they are. Like I said, any one of those 3 that I talked about from Houston would be that player for them. I could see.
No, I agree, and a lot of players would love to come to Golden State.
Yeah.
And LaMelo, is it LaMelo? I think it's LaMelo.
LaMelo.
Yeah. Now, he's also a player, though, you could bring in because, Kerr sits Steph, at the end of the first quarter, into the second, and they don't really have, do they have a guy that can come off and play Steph's position? And that, LaMelo has been playing overseas, too. He didn't play college ball. So he's been playing with the pros. So he's not going to take as long to develop as most college players coming out.
The problem I have with LaMelo being there, though, the problem I have, I think he's going to have too much of his dad's arrogance. I think that if he comes there, he's going to want to be eventually, not right away, but eventually he's going to want to be the focal point. And I just kind of feel like, okay, you know what? Warriors already have their focal point. Okay.
Well, they do now, but in 3 years they won't.
In 3 years they won't. And see, that's my point is, can he really be that patient? See, I don't think
that's a good point. That's a good point. But and you say his dad's arrogance. Every player who comes into the NBA has confidence like that, And if you don't think you should be the guy, you shouldn't be in the NBA.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But I understand what you're saying. He could be a distraction.
Right.
Because he could be, moaning that, hey, how come I'm not getting more minutes and this, that, and the other. So, but anyway, I think either way, this is Bob Myers' most important draft as a general manager for the future of the Warriors. They've got what they need right now. Clay supposedly he's looked great in practice. But I will tell you, once you blow out your knee, it's always in the back of your mind the rest of your career. You don't play with such reckless abandon like you did before.
Right.
And so that'll be interesting to see how Clay deals with that. Steph is Steph, he's going to be Steph. And with KD gone now, I think he might even explode even more because he had to take a little bit of a back seat. And, what a professional he was to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Because KD won both MVPs, right, in those 2 championships.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. You know, that's the only thing Steph hasn't won is a Finals MVP.
Right.
And so it's going to be interesting. And you know, drafts, as we both know, it's just you're always everybody's pontificating what's going to happen, who they're going to take. This we don't know till draft day. Is he going to trade number 2 to get to maybe 10 or 11 and get a couple players to build the bench like you're talking about, or is he going to take an impact player at number 2?
So let me ask you now, because that deal with the Phoenix Suns and Chris Paul, it's a 5-player deal. Okay, Kelly Oubre, Ricky Rubio, and I forget who else. I'm not so sure that was a good deal. Okay, because
for Phoenix.
Well, yeah, because 5 players. I mean, come on, man. Chris Paul is good, but he ain't that good, man.
And he's old.
He's old. Yeah, I'm like 5 players for this guy. I mean,
and Devin Booker, he's a 2 guard, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he is.
All right, so now you got somebody to go along with this kid, you know, and they just emptied their bench is what they did. And OKC, these smaller market teams, it's really hard for them. I mean, think about it. You and I have talked about this. They had Westbrook, Harden, and Durant on that team, but yet that coach couldn't get them all to play together.
Get them all together.
That was the first superstar team. You know, of all these teams we're seeing now, they had that before LeBron went to Miami, I think. I can't remember. But
and they couldn't.
Can you imagine if those 3 could have dropped their ego and learned how to work together? I mean, they'd have been unstoppable. You know, so
they probably would have got 6 titles, probably.
Exactly. So, and then they all leave, and then this small market team doesn't have the money to, you know, kind of because they drafted all those guys, you know. Durant was drafted in Seattle, and they moved to OKC. So,
yeah, whoever was that draft manager for OKC, that guy deserved a raise, man. Okay, look, that was a good drafting. That was. So,
and then I saw where Mike Brown was up for a couple of jobs, but I haven't seen he get it. I think is there a job still open?
He went after the job for the Clippers.
That's what it was, yeah.
But he didn't get it. Tyronn Lue got it.
Yeah, Ty Lue got that. He's a bunch of ex-NBA players on his staff. So, so it'll be interesting. I think, you know, it'd be nice too, because the Warriors have been out of – I haven't heard anything about them for like a year.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because they had a horrible season.
Yeah.
Clay got injured. They weren't in the bubble. And, you know, so that's how quickly fame disappears also.
Oh, yeah.
They won 3 titles in 5 years, and you're like, who's on the Warriors anymore?
Yeah, right. And the thing is, you can win 1 year, and by next year, the first thing comes out of their mouth, oh, that was last year.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So anyway, it'll be interesting. I think it's Wednesday, the draft, and just to see what Bob Myers pulls out of his hat, because he's going to have to do something.
Yeah. Okay, well, we're going to have to call it, man. Once again, Shu, always fun hanging out with you, man. Talking Bears sports. This is GameFace, part of the Bleav Talent Network. I am Richard DeRazor Ewing with my co-host Mike the Shoe Shumann. We do this every week. You can come in, you can stop by, you can put your feet up. But no matter what you do, you better have your game face on.